Welcome back, class. This is week number 4. I'm excited to announce that finally, war has come. We are studying this week the American Revolution. We are studying how an improbable small group of ragtag, poor European settlers were able to establish a community, able to come together in a shared belief, a shared sense of wrongness and correct, and we're able to come together in rebellion against the British Empire. This week we are reading chapters 5 and chapter 6 from the American Yap. The American Yap, chapter 5, will be focusing on the American Revolution. It will focus on those years leading up to the Revolution, and of course the important events that took place during the American Revolution. In terms of our primary sources, I am assigning here Thomas Paine, his call for an American independence. Thomas Paine is revolutionary, that he was one of the early voices to call for an uprising against the British. We will read the Declaration of Independence, that all-important document. I hope that as you do so this time, I'm not assuming that you've never read it before, but I ask that you can clear away your expectations about what the Declaration of Independence is. I know that many of the lines are familiar, some have even memorized them, but I want you to put yourself in the shoes of these early American colonists. I want you to imagine sitting in the room writing this document, and I want you to consider the function of it. Note the organization, the preface. What is the argument that they're making? How is that argument advanced? And then in the lists that follow that introductory paragraph, note all of the offenses that the colonists point to justify their independence. You know, independence is something that's revolutionary in and of itself. When we think of the word revolution, prior to the 18th century, the term revolution was used to describe things like the changing of the day, as the earth spins on its axis, and each day we have a single revolution. A revolution is not an overthrow of a system, but in fact it is the returning to an origin. Morning revolves, and the revolution is complete when morning comes again. Every year we have a complete revolution of the earth around the sun. What does one revolution signify? It signifies one completeness, that spring has turned into summer, has turned into fall, has died into winter, and then after one complete revolution is ended, we are back at spring. Right? One thing that we often ignore is when we think about the term revolution, we believe that the revolutionists were trying to establish a new system, a new government, when in reality, what the American revolutionists wanted was to go back. They recognized, however, was that going back was impossible. There was no going back. Going back meant having King George accept that these demands that they were making, that the king himself was in error. And that was not a position King George was willing to make. Those of you who've listened to the musical, the Broadway musical Hamilton, you'll note how King George responds to these calls for independence. Just you see, you belong to me. So, the American revolutionists changed the definition, established for the first time what it means to have a revolution. Now, this will inspire other revolutionaries, such as those in France, and other revolutions, even those that we see today in places of the world like Syria. Right? When we talk about the revolution, we're not talking about going back to the way it was before this corrupt president. We often discuss a revolution as overthrowing that government and establishing a new, more representative government. It's just an interesting play out of words and the development of ideas over time. All right, chapter 6 of the American Yap will look at what happens after the war. This was an extremely troublesome time, and we often assume that America just was quick to establish a new government and created states, and everyone was happy and working together towards a common goal. But much like we see in modern-day Iraq, where Saddam Hussein was overthrown and a new representative form of democracy was established, we've continued to see 10 years of turmoil as the individuals on the ground, the different sects and the different ethnicities fight for control. Much was true about the United States in the aftermath of the American Revolution. Every state had a different opinion about how to proceed. Everyone had their best interests, their welfare, right, their financial stake in the outcome. And so because of some shrewd politicking by some of the founding fathers, including great work by Alexander Hamilton, the United States would eventually establish a country, but it would take years for the men and women on the ground to agree to a form of government that was acceptable to all. This week, in terms of assignments, there is a reading quiz covering both chapters 5 and 6. Just as a reminder, the reading quizzes are timed, so I encourage you to do the readings ahead of time so that you don't have to switch back and forth and search for answers and feel that stress. Also, there is a primary source analysis from one of these 4 primary sources for this week. Now, this is a great time for you to as well begin thinking about your final project. Just as a reminder, next week, by November 12th, each of you is expected to have submitted a proposal for your final project. If you need a reminder, I encourage you to click here on Assignment Resources to scroll down to the essay and unessay. Here you'll see what the prompt is. If you click on the unessay and essay, you'll see a video of me laying out what the assignment is. You'll have a description of both approaches, the traditional and the unessay, with both examples. What I expect from you in your proposal doesn't have to be anything too extravagant, but I would like for you to answer in a short way the assignment prompt. What is the theme? Which style option are you selecting, the traditional essay or the unessay? And how do you go about, who are your 3 people, your 3 events, your 3 locations? How are you going to go about this project? I must approve of all of your assignments prior to November 12th. So I encourage you to submit them as soon as possible, and I will be in communication with you about your project. As always, should you have any questions, email me at brantellsworth@centralpenn.edu. My office hours are 10 to 11 a.m. My phone number is listed in the syllabus. Best of luck to you this week in an exciting readings.